Europe, a continent often portrayed as a fading ember of faith, yet in 2025, the fire burns anew. One nation witnessed more than 50,000 young adults return to the Catholic Church, while another recorded its greatest surge in priestly vocations in 3 decades. These are not mere statistics. They are rallying banners of resistance, renewal, and rebirth. Welcome to the top 10 European countries for Catholics. Monsieur Ha, latest rankings 2025, a journey through the places where faith still breathes with power, pulses with courage, and lights the way forward. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe as we unveil the nation leading this remarkable spiritual resurgence. Number 1. Vatican City, the beating heart of Catholic life. Though it is the smallest country on earth, no larger than a single neighborhood, its influence stretches like an unbroken current across oceans and continents. Within less than half a square mile lies the command center of a faith followed by more than 1 billion souls, a spiritual capital that shapes the conscience of the world. Inside its walls stands the successor of St. Peter, the Pope, whose voice carries across languages and borders, guiding the Church through both the weight of ancient tradition and the turbulence of modern change. Here, papal decrees, synods, and appointments are not mere administrative acts. They are echoes of 2,000 years of apostolic continuity, decisions that ripple outward into parishes, universities, missions, and movements worldwide. At its core rises St. Peter's Basilica, a masterpiece of stone and spirit. Its dome shelters the tomb of the first pope, where countless pilgrims kneel in tears, reverence, and awe. The square outside comes alive each week when the Pope addresses the faithful, thousands gathered in person, millions more joined by broadcast, turning a cobbled piazza into the beating stage of global faith. Amid Europe's shifting tides of secularism, this city-state remains a paradox. Fragile in size, yet unshakable in permanence. While empires have risen and crumbled around it, the Vatican endures, pausing where the world rushes, praying where the world forgets, and speaking with a moral authority that confronts digital dilemmas, human dignity, and justice in an unsettled age. A place so small it could be overlooked on a map, yet so central that its silence or its voice reshapes history. Number 2. Italy, where eternal faith still breathes through eternal cities. Encircling the Vatican, the spiritual capital for over 1 billion Catholics, the nation itself carries the weight of centuries, blending sacred history with the rhythms of modern life. Faith here is not confined to basilicas. It lingers in stone piazzas, village chapels, and candlelit festivals that turn entire towns into living processions of devotion. With nearly 80% of its population identifying as Catholic, Italy remains one of the Church's strongest pillars. Yet its distinction lies not only in numbers, but in the depth of its spiritual legacy stretching from the relics of St. Anthony in Padua to the quiet Umbrian hills, where the humility of St. Francis of Assisi still radiates. Every region holds its own chapter of Catholic memory, carved into shrines, monasteries, and timeless rituals. Italy is also a forge for the Church's future. Hundreds of seminaries and theological centers continue to train priests, scholars, and missionaries, shaping voices that will guide Catholic thought for generations. Many young Italians still respond to the call of religious life, particularly in the South, in dioceses such as Naples, Palermo, and Bari, where parish communities remain vibrant, defying the drift of secularization. Even as urban centers like Milan or Rome see dwindling Sunday attendance, Catholic values remain woven into ordinary life. A family murmuring grace before dinner, wedding vows exchanged under the arches of centuries-old churches, or processions that bring together children and grandparents in the same hymn. In Italy, faith is not a relic locked in the past. It is a living current, carried in rituals, art, and everyday gestures that bind the nation together. Number 3. Poland, the living heartbeat of Catholic Eastern Europe. In 2025, Faith here is not just inherited tradition, but the very fabric of identity. Nearly 9 out of 10 Poles call themselves Catholic, and more than 40% gather for Mass each week, a devotion unmatched across much of the continent. These are not statistics of a bygone era. They are the rhythms of a faith woven into daily life. Teonanime, the shadow and legacy of St. John Paul II still shaped the nation, from his humble beginnings in Wadawis to the vast pilgrimages that pour into Jasna Gora, where the Black Madonna draws millions in prayer. His influence remains both intimate and national, inspiring devotion in families while anchoring Catholicism at the heart of Poland's public spirit. Catholicism here does not hide in private corners. Streets bloom with petals during Corpus Christi processions, as choirs and hymns fill towns with open declarations of faith. Universities remain strongholds of Catholic thought, training theologians, philosophers, and ethicists who bring moral clarity into politics, medicine, and education. Vocations continue to flourish, with thousands of young men and women choosing religious life, an extraordinary contrast to the empty seminaries of Western Europe. Poland also raises its voice far beyond its borders, championing life, family, and freedom of belief. From Catholic Action Poland to Radio Maria, lay movements shape public debate, while alumni of World Youth Day nurture the next generation of leaders. In a Europe where belief often retreats to the margins, Poland stands as proof that Catholic tradition can still move boldly through the streets, institutions, and hearts of a nation. Number 4. France, beauty rising from the ashes. Once branded the eldest daughter of the Church, the nation long seemed the very symbol of Europe's secular drift. Silent pews, dwindling vocations, and a public life that treated faith as a forgotten relic. Yet beneath the surface of decline, a quiet defiance has taken root. Though less than a third of Catholics attend Mass regularly, the devotion of this smaller flock burns with an intensity that is reshaping France's spiritual imagination. Traditional Latin Mass communities are no longer fading curiosities. They thrive with young families, students, and even former skeptics who seek in ancient rites a beauty and transcendence modern culture cannot offer. One striking sign of renewal is the Chartres pilgrimage. Once obscure, it now gathers more than 15,000 participants, mostly youth, who walk nearly 100 kilometers from Paris to the Gothic cathedral, their songs and prayers turning exhaustion into testimony. In those miles, a generation discovers faith not as heritage, but as chosen conviction. Meanwhile, the restoration of Notre Dame Cathedral after the 2019 fire has become more than an architectural project. Rising scaffolds symbolize a nation reclaiming its soul, each stone set not only for repair, but for resurrection. Perhaps most remarkable is the wave of conversions, from former atheists and immigrants of Muslim background, drawn not by cultural habit but by encounters with beauty, suffering, and silence. In candlelit baptisms and youth gatherings, a new face of French Catholicism emerges, not triumphant, but resilient, forged in fragility, carrying the sacred with renewed strength. Number 5. Spain, echoes of glory, whispers of renewal. Yet in 2025, Catholicism here is not a fading memory but a force still entwined with national life. Around 68% of Spaniards continue to identify as Catholic, giving the country one of the highest percentages in Western Europe. Even as weekly Mass attendance has declined, faith has transformed into something both cultural and defiant, carried through festivals, architecture, and collective memory. Few traditions embody this resilience more vividly than Semana Santa, the Holy Week processions of Seville, Granada, and Malaga. Streets glow with candlelight as hooded penitents march to the sound of slow drums, bearing statues of the Virgin and the crucified Christ on immense floats swaying through narrow lanes. Entire neighborhoods spend months in preparation, uniting art, devotion, and heritage in ceremonies that bind generations together. The same heartbeat can be felt along the Camino de Santiago, the ancient pilgrimage to the shrine of Saint James. In 2024, more than 400,000 pilgrims from over 150 nations walked its paths. Some sought penance, others healing or reflection, but all discovered a sense of the sacred along its winding trails, proof that the hunger for transcendence remains alive across cultures. Beyond these great spectacles, quieter renewals stir in parishes, convents, and universities. New youth-led communities, lay movements, and catechetical programs use digital media, music, and missionary work to reawaken belief among a generation often labeled as disengaged. Young Spaniards are not only returning to church, they are reshaping it with energy, inclusivity, and vision. From Catalonia to Madrid to the Basque Country, dioceses are building centers for formation and retreats, preparing Catholics to live with courage in a diverse society. In Spain, Catholicism is not confined to the pews. It moves in public squares, walks ancient pilgrim routes, and takes root in the hearts of those who continue to search for something greater. Number 6. Portugal, a nation consecrated to Mario in 2025. While much of Europe wrestles with fading religious identity, Catholicism here remains both visible and foundational. More than 4 out of 5 citizens still call themselves Catholic, not as a label, but as a way of living, woven into family life, tradition, and national consciousness. Nowhere is this devotion more radiant than at Fatima, one of the world's greatest pilgrimage sites. Each year, over 6 million pilgrims converge, some arriving after days of walking in silence, others carrying prayers for healing, hope, and reconciliation. Increasingly, the faces are young, a generation often dismissed as secular, now rediscovering a personal and transformative relationship with the divine, shaped by the Virgin Mary's call to repentance, peace, and renewal. Faith here does not remain inside church walls. It breathes through festivals, schools, and public life. Catholic education continues to form minds and consciences, to teaching not only knowledge but compassion and moral clarity. In parishes, families find spiritual lifelines, youth groups, social outreach, and programs that uphold the elderly and marginalized, creating a network of care that sustains communities. Portugal's bishops have emerged as strong moral voices in Europe, addressing urgent issues with courage and conviction. They defend human dignity, speak for migrants, call for ecological responsibility, and warn against digital dehumanization. Their leadership embodies a church rooted in tradition, yet unafraid to engage modern challenges head-on. In Portugal, Catholicism remains more than ritual. It is a living inheritance, a force that shapes culture, conscience, and community across generations. Number 7. Ireland, a humble revival from a wounded past. For centuries, Catholicism was the heartbeat of Irish life, shaping schools, politics, and families. But by the late 20th century, that bond was fractured. Scandals eroded public trust, secular values gained ground, and mass attendance, once above 80%, collapsed to a fraction of its former strength. Yet in 2025, the story is no longer one of collapse, but of quiet renewal. Stripped of its old institutional dominance, faith is re-emerging in unexpected places, small communities, youth gatherings, and digital spaces where honesty matters more than tradition. The very generation once thought lost is now leading the way, drawn not by nostalgia, but by a hunger for meaning in a culture drowning in noise and cynicism. Movements such as Alpha Ireland, charismatic worship nights, and lay-led networks are pulling people back, not to grand cathedrals, but to living rooms, college halls, and online forums where belief is shared with raw authenticity. At the heart of this revival stands the Knock Shrine, once a fading relic, now alive with thousands of pilgrims, especially youth and young families, seeking healing, community, and direction. Events like Youth 2000 and the Knock Youth Festival have turned it into a vibrant hub of hope. Even Ireland's arts and media world has become part of the renewal. Catholic podcasts, films, and music are making the faith accessible in ways the institutional church could not. This revival may not yet fill every parish, but it is reshaping the conversation, showing that faith need not dominate to endure, only to be lived with sincerity and conviction. Number 8, Germany, wealth, wisdom, and a church at the crossroads. Nowhere else in Europe does the Catholic Church embody such striking contrast. It is among the richest religious institutions on earth, sustained by the Kirchensteuer, a unique church tax requiring registered Catholics to contribute nearly a tenth of their income. This system yields billions annually, funding vast networks of dioceses, schools, charities, and world-renowned theological centers. Germany's universities, Munster, Tübingen, Bonn, are more than academic landmarks. They are arenas of fierce intellectual debate, shaping theological conversations that ripple across continents. Yet beneath this wealth and scholarship lies a profound crisis. Weekly mass attendance has fallen below 10%, and in 2023 alone more than 500,000 Catholics formally left the Church, a rupture that unsettled both the German episcopate and the Vatican. At the heart of the turmoil stands the synodal path, an ambitious reform movement sparked by abuse scandals and calls for accountability. Its debates on same-sex blessings, women's ordination, lay authority, and episcopal power have electrified some as prophetic and necessary, while alarming others who fear division and fragmentation. Germany has become a stage where the clash between tradition and reform plays out before the eyes of the world. Amid this tension, Germany still functions as the intellectual powerhouse of Catholicism. Its publishing houses, seminaries, and scholars fuel both progressive and traditionalist currents, ensuring its voice is never absent from global discourse. And its sacred spaces, the spires of Cologne Cathedral piercing the skyline, the carved stone of Regensburg and Bamberg glowing with centuries of prayer, remain visible anchors of faith. These monuments are not relics of a forgotten age. They are living witnesses to a church wrestling with its identity, torn between the weight of its past and the urgency of its future. Number 9, Croatia, where faith and homeland are one. Here, Catholicism is not simply practiced but lived, woven into the fabric of national identity. In 2025, nearly 86% of Croatians identify as Catholic, a devotion visible from school classrooms to state holidays, where faith and patriotism move in lockstep. Religious instruction remains a trusted part of education, embraced by parents who see the church as a moral guide. Sundays are sacred, with mass attendance among the highest in Europe, filling both rural chapels and city cathedrals. This is no fleeting habit but an intergenerational rhythm. Grandparents, parents, and children gathered side by side in pews, carrying tradition forward as a living family legacy. Croatia also stands apart in its religious vocations. Seminaries are full, and religious orders continue to welcome new novices at a time when much of the West struggles to keep theirs open. So strong is this vitality that Croatia now sends priests and sisters abroad, becoming a missionary exporter to countries where Catholicism is fading. At the heart of devotion lies Maria Bistrica, the nation's great Marian shrine, drawing more than 800,000 pilgrims each year. These journeys are often made on foot, entire villages walking together in prayer and song, transforming travel into communal liturgy. Feast days, too, radiate intensity, multi-day celebrations blending processions, folk music, dancing, and food, uniting spiritual devotion with cultural pride. What makes Croatia especially vibrant is its youthful energy. Far from retreating, young Croatians are leading in church music ministries, podcasts, digital evangelization, and campus chaplaincies overflowing with discussion and worship. With creativity and passion, they are reshaping Catholic life into something deeply modern yet firmly rooted in tradition. Number 10, Hungary, a rising flame in Central Europe. While much of the continent drifts deeper into secularism, Hungary has chosen a different path, one boldly anchored in tradition, cultural conviction, and faith. With nearly 39% of its people identifying as Catholic, the Church is not treated as a relic of history but as a living force shaping the nation's identity and future. This renewal is no accident. It reflects deliberate choices, large-scale restorations of churches, incentives for Catholic education, and policies supporting family life, all reinforcing Christianity as a cornerstone of national culture. A defining moment came in 2021, when Budapest hosted the International Eucharistic Congress, an event absent from Hungary for more than 80 years. It marked the nation's re-emergence on the global stage as a center of Catholic vitality. By 2025, the results are unmistakable. Thousands of young Hungarians join pilgrimages to Marian shrines and monasteries, while new Catholic universities draw students not only from within the country, but also from across Central Europe, eager for moral and spiritual formation. Beyond the clergy, an expanding network of lay-led ministries drives renewal in local communities, from pro-life advocacy and catechesis to charitable outreach that binds neighborhoods together. In a Europe struggling with disconnection and identity loss, Hungary has chosen to make faith visible, public, and celebrated. No longer just a small nation on the map, it has become a flare in the dark, reigniting hope where many believed the light had gone out. If this journey through Catholic Europe has inspired you or opened your eyes to something new, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments which country surprised you the most, and which one would you choose to visit on your own path of faith? Let's keep the spirit alive together and let this light continue to shine for generations.